In 2020, the FBI received reports of almost 8.9 million violent crimes in the U.S., including rape, robbery, aggravated assault, and murder. However, violence varies regionally, and the rate of violent crime in some states is now equal to or higher than it was in the 90s. Join Viewcation as we rank states with the highest crime rates. Tennessee. It's no secret Tennessee is one of the most violent states in the U.S. Gangs are a problem in numerous areas of Knoxville, Memphis, and even some parts of Nashville, so much so that many natives avoid these cities unless absolutely necessary. Murfreesboro is the most secure city in Tennessee because it has a lower crime rate, superior public services, and a less chaotic environment. The most common violent crimes in this area are assault, murder, and rape. There are roughly 200 rapes in Tennessee, as well as more than 4,500 theft offenses reported each year. In 2019, there were 37,000 violent crimes reported in Tennessee, making it one of the states with the highest crime rates in the U.S. Although murder is uncommon in the state, assaults occur on a regular basis. Nevada. Nevada is notorious for its casino and entertainment industries and has a higher crime rate than the rest of the country, a fact that's kept secret from visitors. And while other cities in Nevada have higher rates of violent crime, Las Vegas has the most due to its abundance of casinos. It's one of the most hazardous cities in the U.S., and travelers should exercise caution there because of the prevalence of organized crime and scam artists who rely on taking advantage of tourists. Robberies and assaults are the two most common types of crime in the state. Nevada has crime statistics of about 100 homicides, over 2,300 assaults, and about 200 rapes, and more than 33,000 theft crimes annually. It has one of the highest rates of property crime in the country, with over 202,000 offenses committed annually. Texas. Texas was once considered a safe haven for cross-country visitors, but today it's home to numerous criminal gangs active across the U.S. Texas has particularly high crime rates in major cities like Austin and Houston. Areas such as Dallas, Fort Worth, and San Antonio have a high crime rate due to the presence of criminal gangs such as the Crips and MS-13. Unfortunately, only 20% of assaults and robberies are ever reported to the police, and hence the rest don't make it to national crime statistics. Although murder is relatively uncommon in the state, it does occur annually, with an estimated 50 to 100 homicides contributing to the state's elevated crime rate. Idaho. There are numerous different criminal gangs operating in Idaho, each contributing to the state's high crime rate. These groups go by names like Aryan Knights, Latin Kings, SVC, and others. Every major city in Idaho reports thousands of attacks annually, making it one of the most hazardous states in the U.S. There were over 37,000 violent crimes reported in Idaho in 2019, making it one of the states with the highest crime rates in the country. Its crime rate puts it back in the top 5 most dangerous states in America. Every year there are about 23,000 assaults. At around 110,000 thefts each year, this state is consistently ranked as one of the 5 most dangerous in terms of property crime rates. New Mexico. The high rates of crime in New Mexico, especially murders, robberies, and other acts that result in bodily harm, have earned the state a negative reputation. Since criminal groups in New Mexico make the state dangerous even for criminals, it's best to keep your wits about you. As with other states, only around 20% of incidents of rape are reported. This is so low that it's not reflected in national crime statistics. Alaska. Compared to other states, Alaska has a disproportionately high number of complaints of violent crime, especially rape and assault. Some of the most dangerous places in Alaska can be found in Kotzebue and Anchorage. In 2018, Alaska had the highest rate of violent crime at 885 per 100,000 residents, compared to the national average of 380 per 100,000. Aggravated assault, as is generally the case, accounts for the great bulk of violent crime in the state. Alaska has a disproportionately high rate of rape, with 161 rapes per 100,000 residents in 2018. Alaska had the highest rape rate of any state. Places with fewer options for making a living often have greater concentration of crime. With 6.6% of its workforce unemployed in 2018, Alaska had the highest yearly unemployment rate of any state in the nation. Arkansas. Studies have shown Arkansas is one of the least secure states in the country, and this is despite the fact that the violent crime rate dropped by 3.6% between 2017 and 2018. The state's violent crime rate of 543 per 100,000 people was much higher in 2018 than the national rate of 380. The concentration of violent crime in a few cities in Arkansas is a major contributor to the state's overall violent crime rate. For instance, in 2018, there were 1,609 violent crimes for every 100,000 residents in Pine Bluff. West Memphis, the state's deadliest city, had 1,970 homicide for every 100,000 residents. It's home to the highest violent and property crime rate in the state. Louisiana. It's a well-known fact that the rate of crime in Louisiana is far higher than the national average. It had the third highest crime rate among the 50 states in 2019. The crime rate in Louisiana increased by 14% from the previous year, with the rate rising by the same percentage while the property crime rate fell by 10%. And while Opelousas isn't the largest city in Louisiana, it does have the highest rates of both violent crime and burglary. In 2018, there were 25,000 reported violent crimes in Louisiana, making it the sixth most violent in the U.S. It has the highest incarceration rate, with 942 adults behind bars for every 100,000 residents aged 18 and up. Like many other states, low-income neighborhoods with little employment and educational opportunities often have higher crime rates. Louisiana has higher percentage of people living in poverty than the rest of the U.S. Furthermore, in 2018, the unemployment rate in the state was 4.9%, much higher than the national average of 3.9%. Alabama. With 519 violent crimes per 100,000 residents, Alabama has one of the highest crime rates in the U.S. It follows the national trend of increased crime rates in economically depressed communities. The poverty rate in this state, at 16.8%, is significantly higher than the national average of 13.1%. Anniston is the most dangerous city in Alabama. The state has a disproportionately high rate of aggravated assault and homicide. In 2018, Alabama had the sixth highest rates of both homicides and aggravated assault per 100,000 residents. Missouri. Missouri's rate of violent crime is among the highest in the U.S. at more than 500 per 100,000 residents. Most of Missouri's crime occurs in its larger cities, with 10,661 crimes reported for every 100,000 residents. Branson, Missouri has the state's highest crime rate. St. Louis is widely regarded as the most dangerous city in the state, despite having a very low crime rate. That's because theft and vandalism account for much of Branson's high rate, while murder and robbery fuel St. Louis's high rate. Murder is at an all-time high in the Show Me state. With 9.9 murders per 100,000 residents in 2018, the state ranked second only to Louisiana for the highest murder rate in the country. South Carolina. 5 states in the South are among the most hazardous, with South Carolina being one. In 2018, there were 24,000 violent crimes in the state, which equates to 488 per 100,000 residents. That same year, it recorded 392 murder cases. Particularly high rates of aggravated assault and murder can be seen throughout the state. Lake City is the most hazardous municipality. With 1,700 violent crimes per 100,000 people, this community has more than 3 times the statewide average. In spite of having the highest crime rate in the state, Myrtle Beach is probably safer than cities like Lake City, where more violent crimes are committed. In 2018, South Carolina had the 6th highest murder rate and the 7th highest severe assault rate in the U.S. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of these states was most surprising to hear on this list? Let us know in the comments section below.